Today is day 6 for the Come Follow Me study for this week, August 12th through the 18th. Stand fast in the faith of Christ, Alma 43 through 52. Saturday, August 17th, 2024, Alma 49 through 52. In Alma 49 through 50, Mormon continued his account of the Nephite-Lamanite War. Considering the effort required to engrave the plates and the limited writing space available, we should try to understand what Mormon saw in this period of Nephite history that he thought would be significant for us today. As you read these chapters, watch for the insights and understandings that were meant to bless our lives. Chapter 49, the invading Lamanites are unable to take the fortified cities of Ammonihah and Noah. Amalickiah curses God and swears to drink the blood of Moroni. Helaman and his brethren continued to strengthen the church. About 72 BC. The Lamanites are afraid to attack the city of Ammonihah. Alma 49, 1 through 2. And now it came to pass, in the 11th month of the 19th year, on the 10th day of the month, the armies of the Lamanites were seen approaching towards the land of Ammonihah. And behold, the city had been rebuilt, and Moroni had stationed an army by the borders of the city. And they had cast up dirt round about to shield them from the arrows and the stones of the Lamanites. For behold, they fought with stones and with arrows. As you read Alma 49, 3 and 12 through 14, notice what the Nephites did that made them successful or unsuccessful. Then ponder how you can use what you learn to help you win your spiritual battles. Alma 49, 3 through 8. Behold, I said that the city of Ammonihah had been rebuilt. I say unto you, yea, that it was in part rebuilt. And because the Lamanites had destroyed it once because of the iniquity of the people, they supposed that it would again become an easy prey for them. But behold, how great was their disappointment! For behold, the Nephites had dug up a ridge of earth round about them, which was so high that the Lamanites could not cast their stones and their arrows at them, that they might take effect. Neither could they come upon them, save it was by their place of entrance. Now at this time the chief captains of the Lamanites were astonished exceedingly because of the wisdom of the Nephites in preparing their places of security. Now the leaders of the Lamanites had supposed, because of the greatness of their numbers, yea, they supposed that they should be privileged to come upon them as they had hitherto done. Yea, and they also prepared themselves with shields and with breastplates, and they had also prepared themselves with garments of skins, yea, very thick garments to cover their nakedness. And being thus prepared, they supposed that they should easily overpower and subject their brethren to the yoke of bondage, or slay and massacre them according to their pleasure. But behold, to their uttermost astonishment, they were prepared for them in a manner which never had been seen among the children of Lehi. Now they were prepared for the Lamanites to battle after the manner of the instructions of Moroni. The following chart lists some examples of how the fortifications of the Nephites could apply to us. How the Nephites were fortified. The Nephites prepared for the enemy in a manner never before seen. How we can fortify. We must prepare as never before to stand against the wiles of the devil. Alma 49, 9 through 10. And it came to pass that the Lamanites, or the Amalickiahites, were exceedingly astonished at their manner of preparation for war. Now, if King Amalickiah had come down out of the land of Nephi, at the head of his army, perhaps he would have caused the Lamanites to have attacked the Nephites at the city of Ammonihah. For behold, he did care not for the blood of his people. The following chart contrasts Moroni and Amalickiah. Captain Moroni loved his brethren and labored exceedingly for the welfare and safety of his people. Amalickiah did not care for the blood of his people and worked to promote his own selfishness. Alma 49, 11. But behold, Amalickiah did not come down himself to battle. And behold, his chief captains durst not attack the Nephites in the city of Ammonihah. For Moroni had altered the management of affairs among the Nephites, insomuch that the Lamanites were disappointed in their places of retreat, and they could not come upon them. The Lamanites take an oath to attack the city of Noah. Alma 49, 12 through 13. Therefore they retreated into the wilderness, and took their camp, and marched towards the land of Noah, supposing that to be the next best place for them to come against the Nephites. For they knew not that Moroni had fortified or had built forts of security for every city in all the land round about. Therefore they marched forward to the land of Noah with a firm determination. Yea, their chief captains came forward and took an oath that they would destroy the people of that city. The following chart contrasts Moroni and Amalickiah. Captain Moroni was a man governed by righteous principles who taught the Nephites to never raise the sword except to defend one's family, life, or freedoms. Amalickiah was a man governed by passion who taught the people to aggressively conquer and make oaths to destroy. Alma 49:14. But behold, to their astonishment, the city of Noah, which had hitherto been a weak place, had now, by the means of Moroni, become strong, yea, even to exceed the strength of the city Ammonihah. The following chart lists some examples of how the fortifications of the Nephites could apply to us. How the Nephites were fortified. The Nephites made their weaker cities into strongholds. How we can fortify. If we come unto Christ, he can make weak things become strong to us. Record your thoughts below. What the Nephites did that made them successful. How you could use what you learned to help you win your spiritual battles. Alma 49:15-20. And now, behold, this was wisdom in Moroni, for he had supposed that they would be frightened at the city Ammonihah, and as the city of Noah had hitherto been the weakest part of the land, therefore they would march thither to battle, and thus it was according to his desires. And behold, Moroni had appointed Lehi to be chief captain over the men of that city. And it was that same Lehi who fought with the Lamanites in the valley on the east of the river Sidon. And now behold, it came to pass that when the Lamanites had found that Lehi commanded the city, they were again disappointed, for they feared Lehi exceedingly. Nevertheless, their chief captains had sworn with an oath to attack the city. Therefore, they brought up their armies. Now behold, the Lamanites could not get into their forts of security by any other way save by the entrance, because of the highness of the bank which had been thrown up, and the depth of the ditch which had been dug round about, save it were by the entrance. And thus were the Nephites prepared to destroy all such as should attempt to climb up to enter the fort by any other way, by casting over stones and arrows at them. Thus they were prepared, yea, a body of their strongest men, with their swords and their slings, to smite down all who would attempt to come into their place of security, by the place of entrance, and thus were they prepared to defend themselves against the Lamanites. The Lamanites are defeated in the city of Noah. Alma 49:21-23. And it came to pass that the captains of the Lamanites brought up their armies before the place of entrance, and began to contend with the Nephites, to get into their place of security. But behold, they were driven back from time to time, insomuch that they were slain with an immense slaughter. Now when they found that they could not obtain power over the Nephites by the pass, they began to dig down their banks of earth, that they might obtain a pass to their armies, that they might have an equal chance to fight. But behold, in these attempts they were swept off by the stones and arrows which were thrown at them, and instead of filling up their ditches by pulling down the banks of earth, they were filled up in a measure with their dead and wounded bodies. Thus the Nephites had all power over their enemies, and thus the Lamanites did attempt to destroy the Nephites until their chief captains were all slain. Yea, and more than 1,000 of the Lamanites were slain. Yea, on the other hand, there was not a single soul of the Nephites which was slain. The following chart lists some examples of how the fortifications of the Nephites could apply to us. How the Nephites were fortified. The Nephites were given power over their enemies. How we can fortify. If we are faithful and trust the Lord, he will give us power over our enemies. Alma 49:24. There were about 50 who were wounded, who had been exposed to the arrows of the Lamanites through the pass, but they were shielded by their shields, and their breastplates, and their headplates, insomuch that their wounds were upon their legs, many of which were very severe. The Nephites thanked the Lord for his blessings. Alma 49:25-27. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that their chief captains were all slain, they fled into the wilderness. And it came to pass that they returned to the land of Nephi, to inform their king Amalickiah, who was a Nephite by birth, concerning their great loss. And it came to pass that he was exceedingly angry with his people, because he had not obtained his desire over the Nephites. He had not subjected them to the yoke of bondage. Yea, he was exceedingly wroth, and he did curse God, and also Moroni, swearing with an oath that he would drink his blood, and this because Moroni had kept the commandments of God in preparing for the safety of his people. The following chart contrasts Moroni and Amalickiah. Captain Moroni humbly sought God's help in preserving life. Amalickiah cursed God and swore to kill. Alma 28 through 30. And it came to pass that on the other hand, the people of Nephi did thank the Lord their God, because of his matchless power in delivering them from the hands of their enemies. And thus ended the 19th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Yea, and there was continual peace among them, and exceedingly great prosperity in the church because of their heed and diligence which they gave unto the word of God, which was declared unto them by Helaman and Shiblon and Corianton and Ammon and his brethren, yea, and by all those who had been ordained by the holy order of God, being baptized unto repentance, and sent forth to preach among the people. Chapter 50. Moroni fortifies the land of the Nephites. They build many new cities. Wars and destructions befell the Nephites in the days of their wickedness and abominations. Morianton and his dissenters are defeated by Teancum. Nephihah dies, and his son Pahoran fills the judgment seat, about 72 to 67 BC. Moroni's armies prepare for attacks from the Lamanites. Alma 51. And now it came to pass that Moroni did not stop making preparations for war, or to defend his people against the Lamanites, for he caused that his armies should commence in the commencement of the 20th year of the reign of the judges, that they should commence in digging up heaps of earth round about all the cities, throughout all the land which was possessed by the Nephites. The following chart lists some examples of how the fortifications of the Nephites could apply to us. How the Nephites were fortified. After some Nephite victories, they did not stop in their preparations. How we can fortify. When we have successfully overcome a temptation or trial, we must not let our guard down, but continue to endure and watch and pray always to not be overcome. President Benson warned there is real danger we may let down our guard, as it were, that we may be tempted to join with the world and adopt some of their standards against which we have been warned by the Lord. Alma 50, 2 through 4. And upon the top of these ridges of earth he caused that there should be timbers, yea, works of timber built up to the height of a man, round about the cities. And he caused that upon those works of timber there should be a frame of pickets built upon the timbers round about, and they were strong and high. And he caused towers to be erected that overlooked those works of pickets, and he caused places of security to be built upon those towers, that the stones and the arrows of the Lamanites could not hurt them. The following chart lists some examples of how the fortifications of the Nephites could apply to us. How the Nephites were fortified. The Nephites built security towers so they could see the enemy afar off. How we can fortify. As we rely on prophets who are modern watchmen on the tower and see afar off, we will be better prepared for the future. Write down some of the weak areas in your life and your plans to fortify them against wickedness. What would you include in a list of the most important spiritual fortifications you need to be safe from the enemy who seeks your destruction? Alma 50, 5 through 6. And they were prepared that they could cast stones from the top thereof, according to their pleasure and their strength, and slay him who should attempt to approach near the walls of the city. Thus Moroni did prepare strongholds against the coming of their enemies, round about every city in all the land. Moroni's armies drive out the Lamanites. Alma 50, 7 through 12. And it came to pass that Moroni caused that his armies should go forth into the east wilderness. Yea, and they went forth and drove all the Lamanites who were in the east wilderness into their own lands, which were south of the land of Zarahemla. And the land of Nephi did run in a straight course from the east sea to the west. And it came to pass that when Moroni had driven all the Lamanites out of the east wilderness, which was north of the lands of their own possessions, he caused that the inhabitants who were in the land of Zarahemla and in the land round about should go forth into the east wilderness, even to the borders of the seashore, and possess the land. And he also placed armies on the south, in the borders of their possessions, and caused them to erect fortifications that they might secure their armies and their people from the hands of their enemies. And thus he cut off the strongholds of the Lamanites in the east wilderness, yea, and also in the west, fortifying the line between the Nephites and the Lamanites, between the land of Zarahemla and the land of Nephi, from the west sea, running by the head of the river Sidon, the Nephites possessing all the land northward, yea, even all the land which was northward of the land bountiful according to their pleasure. Thus Moroni with his armies, which did increase daily because of the assurance of protection which his works did bring forth unto them, did seek to cut off the strength and the power of the Lamanites from off the lands of their possessions, that they should have no power upon the lands of their possession. The Nephites build up their cities and prosper. Alma 50, 13 through 23. And it came to pass that the Nephites began the foundation of a city, and they called the name of the city Moroni, and it was by the east sea, and it was on the south by the line of the possessions of the Lamanites. And they also began a foundation of a city between the city of Moroni and the city of Aaron, joining the borders of Aaron and Moroni. And they called the name of the city, or the land, Nephihah. And they also began in that same year to build many cities on the north, one in a particular manner, which they called Lehi, which was in the north by the borders of the seashore, and thus ended the 20th year. And in these prosperous circumstances were the people of Nephi in the commencement of the 21st year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. And they did prosper exceedingly, and they became exceedingly rich, yea, and they did multiply and wax strong in the land. And thus we see how merciful and just are all the dealings of the Lord, to the fulfilling of all his words unto the children of men. Yea, we can behold that his words are verified even at this time, which he spake unto Lehi, saying, Blessed art thou and thy children, and they shall be blessed, inasmuch as they shall keep my commandments. They shall prosper in the land. But remember, inasmuch as they will not keep my commandments, they shall be cut off from the presence of the Lord. And we see that these promises have been verified to the people of Nephi. For it has been their quarrelings and their contentions, yea, their murderings and their plunderings, their idolatry, their whoredoms, and their abominations, which were among themselves, which brought upon them their wars and their destructions. And those who were faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord were delivered at all times, whilst thousands of their wicked brethren have been consigned to bondage, or to perish by the sword, or to dwindle in unbelief, and mingle with the Lamanites. But behold, there never was a happier time among the people of Nephi, since the days of Nephi, then in the days of Moroni, yea, even at this time, in the 21st year of the reign of the judges. Their prophet Joseph Smith said, Happiness is the object and design of our existence, and will be the end thereof, if we pursue the path that leads to it. And this path is virtue, uprightness, faithfulness, holiness, and keeping all the commandments of God. Elder Neal A. Maxwell said, first questioner, how much real happiness is possible in this vale of tears? The disciple, that depends directly on our righteousness. The saints of the 1st century AD in the Americas were described as follows. Surely there could not be a happier people among all the people who had been created by the hand of God. Even in the period around 70 BC, which saw much intergroup warfare, the righteous and faithful were happy. Indeed, Alma wrote, But behold, there never was a happier time among all the people of Nephi since the days of Nephi, than in the days of Moroni. Fortunately, happiness is not totally dependent on what those around us do. Therefore, second questioner, even so, I see some sad-faced members of the church, don't you? The disciple, too many, of course, but not among those who have received his image in their countenances. None among those who've gotten outside their confined circle of selfishness. Indeed, the brethren are happy while they cope with serious and somber problems. Someone said, it is too bad we don't preserve the small talk of great men. So too, the humor of holy men who serve as special witnesses. Alma 50:24. And it came to pass that the 22nd year of the reign of the judges also ended in peace, yea, and also the 23rd year. The people of Morianton rebel against the Nephites. Alma 50:25-26. And it came to pass that in the commencement of the 24th year of the reign of the judges, there would also have been peace among the people of Nephi, had it not been for a contention which took place among them concerning the land of Lehi and the land of Morianton, which joined upon the borders of Lehi, both of which were on the borders by the seashore. For behold, the people who possessed the land of Morianton did claim a part of the land of Lehi. Therefore there began to be a warm contention between them, insomuch that the people of Morianton took up arms against their brethren, and they were determined by the sword to slay them. Elder Richard G. Scott taught, by studying the lives recorded in the Book of Mormon, you will see that selfishness is at the root of all sin. It leads to unrighteous acts that bring anguish or sadness and misery. Alma 50:27-30. But behold, the people who possessed the land of Lehi fled to the camp of Moroni, and appealed unto him for assistance. For behold, they were not in the wrong. And it came to pass that when the people of Morianton, who were led by a man whose name was Morianton, found that the people of Lehi had fled to the camp of Moroni, they were exceedingly fearful lest the army of Moroni should come upon them and destroy them. Therefore Morianton put it into their hearts that they should flee to the land which was northward, which was covered with large bodies of water, and take possession of the land which was northward. And behold, they would have carried this plan into effect, which would have been a cause to have been lamented. But behold, Morianton being a man of much passion, therefore he was angry with one of his maidservants, and he fell upon her and beat her much. President Gordon B. Hinckley taught a violent temper is such a terrible corrosive thing, and the tragedy is that it accomplishes no good. It only feeds evil with resentment and rebellion and pain. Alma 50, 31-35. And it came to pass that she fled and came over to the camp of Moroni, and told Moroni all things concerning the matter, and also concerning their intentions to flee into the land northward. Now behold, the people who were in the land Bountiful, or rather Moroni, feared that they would hearken to the words of Morianton and unite with his people, and thus he would obtain possession of those parts of the land, which would lay a foundation for serious consequences among the people of Nephi, yea, which consequences would lead to an overthrow of their liberty. Therefore Moroni set an army with their camp to head the people of Morianton, to stop their flight into the land northward. And it came to pass that they did not heed them until they had come to the borders of the land desolation, and there they did head them by the narrow pass which led by the sea into the land northward, yea, by the sea on the west and on the east. And it came to pass that the army which was sent by Moroni, which was led by a man whose name was Teancum, did meet the people of Morianton. And so stubborn were the people of Morianton, being inspired by his wickedness and his flattering words, that a battle commenced between them, in the which Teancum did slay Morianton and defeat his army, and took them prisoners, and returned to the camp of Moroni. And thus ended the 24th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. Elder James E. Faust pointed out, Satan is the world's master in the use of flattery, and he knows the great power of speech. Alma 50, 36. And thus were the people of Morianton brought back, and upon their covenanting to keep the peace, they were restored to the land of Morianton, and a union took place between them and the people of Lehi, and they were also restored to their lands. Pahorn is appointed chief judge, Alma 50, 37-40. And it came to pass that in the same year that the people of Lehi had peace restored unto them, that Nephihah, the second chief judge, died, having filled the judgment seat with perfect uprightness before God. Nevertheless, he had refused Alma to take possession of their records and those things which were esteemed by Alma and his fathers to be most sacred. Therefore Alma had conferred them upon his son Helaman. Behold, it came to pass that his son Nephihah was appointed to fill the judgment seat in the stead of his father. Yea, he was appointed chief judge and governor over the people, with an oath and sacred ordinance to judge righteously, and to keep the peace and the freedom of the people, and to grant unto them their sacred privileges to worship the Lord their God, yea, to support and maintain the cause of God all his days, and to bring the wicked to justice according to their crime. Now behold, his name was Pahorn, and Pahorn did fill the seat of his father, and did commence his reign in the end of the 24th year over the people of Nephi. Chapter 51. The kingmen seek to change the law and set up a king. Pahorn and the freemen are supported by the voice of the people. Moroni compels the kingmen to defend their country or be put to death. Amalekiah and the Lamanites capture many fortified cities. Teancum repels the Lamanite invasion and slays Amalekiah in his tent, about 67 to 66 BC. A group of Nephites known as kingmen desire a king to rule over them. Alma 51, 1-5. And now it came to pass in the commencement of the 25th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, they having established peace between the people of Lehi and the people of Morianton concerning their lands, and having commenced the 25th year in peace. Nevertheless, they did not long maintain an entire peace in the land, for there began to be contention among the people concerning the chief judge Pahorn. For behold, there were a part of the people who desired that a few particular points of the law should be altered. But behold, Pahorn did not alter, nor suffer the law to be altered. Therefore, he did not hearken to those who had sent in their voices with their petitions concerning the altering of the law. Therefore, those who were desirous that the law should be altered were angry with him, and desired that he should no longer be chief judge over the land. Therefore, there arose a warm dispute concerning the matter, but not unto bloodshed. And And it came to pass that those who were desirous that Pahoran should be dethroned from the judgment seat were called kingmen, for they were desirous that the law should be altered in a manner to overthrow the free government and to establish a king over the land. Elder Orson F. Whitney said, "It is Lucifer who seeks the overthrow of free institutions, free churches, free government, and who saps wherever he can the foundation of the rights of man. That same fallen being, once called the Morning Star, presented himself before the Father at the beginning and offered himself as a candidate for the saviorship of this world. He declared, had the audacity to declare, that his purpose was to save man in his sins. Not one soul shall be lost. He proposed to compel all to be saved and sought to destroy the free agency of man." Alma 51, 6-7. And those who were desirous that Pahoran should remain chief judge over the land took upon them the name of freemen. And thus was the division among them. For the freemen had sworn or covenanted to maintain their rights and the privileges of their religion by a free government. And it came to pass that this matter of their contention was settled by the voice of the people. And it came to pass that the voice of the people came in favor of the freemen, and Pahoran retained the judgment seat, which caused much rejoicing among the brethren of Pahoran, and also many of the people of liberty, who also put the kingmen to silence. But they durst not oppose, but were obligated to maintain the cause of freedom. Righteous kings are an ideal, but unrighteous kings create problems for their people. As Mosiah said, "For behold, how much iniquity doth one wicked king cause to be committed, yea, and what great destruction." The kingmen who desired Amalickiah as king were inviting disaster. Note in Alma 51:8 who supported the idea of overthrowing the republic in favor of a monarchy and why. Alma 51:8. Now those who were in favor of kings were those of high birth, and they sought to be kings, and they were supported by those who sought power and authority over the people. Amalickiah organizes a Lamanite army to fight the Lamanites. Alma 51, 9-12. But behold, this was a critical time for such contentions to be among the people of Nephi. For behold, Amalickiah had again stirred up the hearts of the people of the Lamanites against the people of the Nephites, and he was gathering together soldiers from all parts of his land, and arming them, and preparing for war with all diligence, for he had sworn to drink the blood of Moroni. But behold, we shall see that his promise which he made was rash. Nevertheless, he did prepare himself and his armies to come to battle against the Nephites. Now his armies were not so great as they had hitherto been, because of the many thousands who had been slain by the hand of the Nephites. But notwithstanding their great loss, Amalickiah had gathered together a wonderfully great army, insomuch that they feared not to come down to the land of Zarahemla. Yea, even Amalickiah did himself come down at the head of the Lamanites, and it was in the 25th year of the reign of the judges, and it was at the same time that they had begun to settle the affairs of their contentions concerning the chief judge Pahoran. Captain Moroni settles a civil war against the kingmen. Alma 51:13. And it came to pass that when the men who were called kingmen had heard that the Lamanites were coming down to battle against them, they were glad in their hearts, and they refused to take up arms, for they were so wroth with the chief judge and also with the people of liberty, that they would not take up arms to defend their country. As citizens, we are subject to the governing laws of our country. Elder Russell M. Nelson offered the following counsel when faced with the duty of taking up arms to defend one's country. Men really are brothers because God really is our Father. Nevertheless, scriptures are studded with stories of contention and combat. They strongly condemn wars of aggression, but sustain obligations of citizens to defend their families and their freedoms. Members of this church will be called into military service of many nations. We believe that governments were instituted of God for the benefit of man, and that he holds men accountable for their acts in relation to them, both in making laws and administering them for the good and safety of society. During the Second World War, when members of the church were forced to fight on opposing sides, the First Presidency affirmed that the state is responsible for the civil control of its citizens or subjects, for their political welfare, and for the carrying forward of political policies, domestic and foreign. But the church itself, as such, has no responsibility for these policies other than urging its members fully to render loyalty to their country. In what ways can Latter-day Saint soldiers serve like Captain Moroni during times of war? Alma 51:14-16. And it came to pass that when Moroni had saw this, and also saw that the Lamanites were coming into the borders of the land, he was exceedingly wroth because of the stubbornness of those people, whom he had labored with so much diligence to preserve. Yea, he was exceedingly wroth, his soul was filled with anger against them. And it came to pass that he sent a petition with the voice of the people unto the governor of the land, desiring that he should read it, and give him, Moroni, power to compel those dissenters to defend their country, or to put them to death. For it was his first care to put an end to such contentions and dissensions among the people, for behold, this had been hitherto a cause for all their destruction. And it came to pass that it was granted according to the voice of the people. The following chart contrasts Moroni and Amalickiah. Captain Moroni worked to put an end to the contention and dissensions. Amalickiah worked to create contention and dissension. Compare the kind of men the Nephites and the Lamanites supported as their leaders. What lessons are found in this comparison for us? What impact can a valiant leader have on a country, state, community, or family? Alma 51:17-21. And it came to pass that Moroni commanded that his army should go against those kingmen to pull down their pride and their nobility, and level them with the earth, or they should take up arms and support the cause of liberty. And it came to pass that the armies did march forth against them, and they did pull down their pride and their nobility, insomuch that they did lift their weapons of war to fight against the men of Moroni. They were hewn down and leveled to the earth. And it came to pass that there were 4,000 of those dissenters who were hewn down by the sword, and those of their leaders who were not slain in battle were taken and cast into prison, and there was no time for their trials at this period. And the remainder of those dissenters, rather than be smitten down to the earth by the sword, yielded to their standard of liberty, and were compelled to hoist the title of liberty upon their towers and their cities, and to take up arms in defense of their country. And thus Moroni put an end to those kingmen, that there were not any known by the appellation of kingmen, and thus he put an end to the stubbornness and the pride of those people who professed the blood of nobility. But they were brought down to humble themselves like unto their brethren, and to fight valiantly for their freedom from bondage. Amalickiah and the Lamanites attack and capture many Nephite cities. Alma 51:22-27. Behold, it came to pass that while Moroni was thus breaking down the wars and contentions, and subjecting them to peace and civilization, and making regulations to prepare for war against the Lamanites, behold, the Lamanites had come into the land of Moroni, which was in the borders by the seashore. And it came to pass that the Nephites were not sufficiently strong in the city of Moroni. Therefore Amalickiah did drive them, slaying many. And it came to pass that Amalickiah took possession of the city, yea, possession of all their fortifications. And those who fled out of the city of Moroni came to the city of Nephihah, and also the people of the city of Lehi gathered themselves together, and made preparations, and were ready to receive the Lamanites to battle. But it came to pass that Amalickiah would not suffer the Lamanites to go against the city of Nephihah to battle, but kept them down by the seashore, leaving men in every city to maintain and defend it. And thus they went on, taking possession of many cities, the city of Nephihah, and the city of Lehi, and the city of Morianton, and the city of Omner, and the city of Gid, and the city of Mulek, all of which were on the east borders by the seashore. And thus had the Lamanites obtained, by the cunning of Amalickiah, so many cities, by their numberless hosts, all of which were strongly fortified after the manner of the fortifications of Moroni, all of which afforded strongholds for the Lamanites. Teancum kills Amalickiah in his tent. Alma 51:28-37. And it came to pass that they marched to the borders of the land bountiful, driving the Nephites before them and slaying many. But it came to pass that they were met by Teancum, who had slain Morianton and had headed his people in his fight. And it came to pass that he headed Amalickiah also, as he was marching forth with his numerous army, that he might take possession of the land bountiful and also the land northward. But behold, he met with a disappointment by being repulsed by Teancum and his men, for they were great warriors. For every man of Teancum did exceed the Lamanites in their strength and in their skill of war, insomuch that they did gain advantage over the Lamanites. And it came to pass that they did harass them, insomuch that they did slay them even until it was dark. And it came to pass that Teancum and his men did pitch their tents in the border of the land bountiful, and Amalickiah did pitch his tents in the borders on the beach by the seashore, and after this manner they were driven. And it came to pass that when the night had come, Teancum and his servants stole forth and went out by night, and went into the camp of Amalickiah, and behold, sleep had overpowered them because of their much fatigue, which was caused by their labors and heat of the day. And it came to pass that Teancum stole privily into the tent of the king, and put a javelin to his heart, and he did cause the death of the king immediately, that he did not awake his servants. And he returned again privily to his own camp, and behold, his men were asleep, and he awoke them and told them all the things which he had done. And he caused that his armies should stand in readiness, lest the Lamanites had awakened and should come upon them. And thus ended the 25th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, and thus ended the days of Amalickiah. Alma 52 through 53 are a verification of the Savior's statement that all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Led by wicked and apostate Nephites, Ammoron and others, the Lamanites sought to violently capture and maintain Nephite cities. Each city was taken at a high price. However, they had not taken any cities, save they had lost much blood. Captain Moroni was always reluctant to take up the sword, and far more eager to lay it down for peace. He knew that even when the Nephites were victorious, it cost thousands of lives on both sides. War would never occur if all people were living the gospel of Jesus Christ. He is the Prince of Peace, and those who follow him are emissaries of peace. Chapter 52. Ammoron succeeds Amalickiah as king of the Lamanites. Moroni, Teancum, and Lehi lead the Nephites in a victorious war against the Lamanites. The city of Mulek is retaken, and Jacob the Zoramite is slain. About 66 to 64 BC. The Lamanites appoint a new king while the Nephites prepare for war. Alma 52, 1 through 11. And now it came to pass, in the 26th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, behold, when the Lamanites awoke on the first morning of the first month, behold, they found Amalickiah was dead in his own tent. And they also saw that Teancum was ready to give them battle on that day. And now when the Lamanites saw this, they were frightened, and they abandoned their design in marching into the land northward, and retreated with all their army into the city of Mulek, and sought protection in their fortifications. And it came to pass that the brother of Amalickiah was appointed king over the people, and his name was Ammoron. Thus King Ammoron, the brother of King Amalickiah, was appointed to reign in his stead. And it came to pass that he did command that his people should maintain these cities, which they had taken by the shedding of blood. For they had not taken any cities, save they had lost much blood. And now Teancum saw that the Lamanites were determined to maintain those cities which they had taken, and those parts of the land which they had obtained possession of. And also seeing the enormity of their number, Teancum thought it was not expedient that he should attempt to attack them on their fronts. But he kept his men round about, as if making preparations for war. Yea, and truly he was preparing to defend himself against them by casting up walls round about, and preparing places of resort. And it came to pass that he kept thus preparing for war until Moroni had sent a large number of men to strengthen his army. And Moroni also sent orders unto him that he should retain all their prisoners who fell into his hands. For as the Lamanites had taken many prisoners, that he should retain all the prisoners of the Lamanites as a ransom for those whom the Lamanites had taken. And he also sent orders unto him that he should fortify the land bountiful, and secure the narrow pass which led into the land northward, lest the Lamanites should obtain that point, and should have power to harass them on every side. And Moroni also sent unto them, desiring him that he would be faithful in maintaining that quarter of the land, and that he would seek every opportunity to scourge the Lamanites in that quarter, as much as was in his power, that perhaps he might take again by stratagem or some other way those cities which had been taken out of their hands, and that he also would fortify and strengthen the cities round about, which had not fallen into the hands of the Lamanites. And he also said unto them, I would come unto you, but behold, the Lamanites are upon us in the borders of the land by the west sea, and behold, I go against them. Therefore I cannot come unto you. The Lamanites gather large armies to attack the Nephites. Alma 52, 12 through 18. Now the king Ammoron had departed out of the land of Zarahemla, and had made known unto the queen concerning the death of his brother, and had gathered together a large number of men, and had marched forth against the Nephites on the borders of the west sea. and thus he was endeavoring to harass the Nephites and to draw away part of their forces to that part of the land. While he had commanded those whom he had left to possess the cities which he had taken, that they should also harass the Nephites on the borders of the East Sea, and should take possession of their lands as much as it was in their power, according to the power of their enemies. And thus were the Nephites in those dangerous circumstances in the ending of the 26th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. But behold, it came to pass that the 27th year of the reign of the judges, that Teancum, by the command of Moroni, who had established armies to protect the south and the west borders of the land, and had begun his march towards the land bountiful, that he might assist Teancum with his men in retaking the city, which they had lost. And it came to pass that Teancum had received orders to make an attempt upon the city of Mulek, and retake it if it were possible. And it came to pass that Teancum made preparations to make an attempt upon the city of Mulek, and marched forth with his army against the Lamanites. But he saw that it was impossible that he could overpower them while they were in their fortifications. Therefore he abandoned his designs and returned again to the city Bountiful to wait for the coming of Moroni, that he might receive strength to his army. And it came to pass that Moroni did arrive with his army at the land of Bountiful, in the latter end of the 27th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi. The Nephite armies recapture Mulek. Alma 52, 19-26. And in the commencement of the 28th year, Moroni and Teancum and many of the chief captains held a council of war, what they should do to cause the Lamanites to come out against them to battle, or that they might by some means flatter them out of their strongholds, that they might gain advantage over them and take again the city of Mulek. And it came to pass that they sent embassies to the army of the Lamanites, which protected the city of Mulek, to their leader, whose name was Jacob, desiring him that he would come out with his armies to meet them upon the plains between the two cities. But behold, Jacob, who was a Zoramite, would not come out with his army to meet them upon the plains. And it came to pass that Moroni, having no hopes of meeting them upon fair grounds, therefore he resolved upon a plan that he might decoy the Lamanites out of their strongholds. Therefore he caused that Teancum should take a small number of men and march down near the seashore, and Moroni and his army by night marched in the wilderness on the west of the city Mulek. And thus on the morrow, when the guards of the Lamanites had discovered Teancum, they ran and told it to Jacob their leader. And it came to pass that the armies of the Lamanites did march forth against Teancum, supposing by their numbers to overpower Teancum because of the smallness of his numbers. And as Teancum saw the armies of the Lamanites coming out against him, he began to retreat down to the seashore northward. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw that he began to flee, they took courage and pursued them with vigor. And while Teancum was thus leading away the Lamanites, who were pursuing them in vain, behold, Moroni commanded that a part of his army who were with him should march forth into the city and take possession of it. And thus they did, and slew all those who had been left to protect the city, yea, all those who had not yielded up their weapons of war. And thus Moroni had obtained possession of the city Mulek with a part of his army, while he marched with the remainder to meet the Lamanites when they should return from the pursuit of Teancum. The surrounded Lamanites surrender to Moroni. Alma 52, 27-40. And it came to pass that the Lamanites did pursue Teancum until they came near the city Bountiful. And then they were met by Lehi and a small army which had been left to protect the city Bountiful. And now behold, when the chief captains of the Lamanites had beheld Lehi with his army coming against them, they fled in much confusion, lest perhaps they should not obtain the city Mulek before Lehi should overtake them. For they were wearied because of their march, and the men of Lehi were fresh. Now the Lamanites did not know that Moroni had been in their rear with his army, and all they feared was Lehi and his men. Now Lehi was not desirous to overtake them till they should meet Moroni and his army. And it came to pass that before the Lamanites had retreated far, they were surrounded by the Nephites, by the men of Moroni on one hand, and the men of Lehi on the other, all of whom were fresh and full of strength. But the Lamanites were wearied because of their long march. And Moroni commanded his men that they should fall upon them until they had given up their weapons of war. And it came to pass that Jacob, being their leader, being also a Zoramite, and having an unconquerable spirit, had led the Lamanites forth to battle with exceeding fury against Moroni. Moroni being in their course of march, therefore Jacob was determined to slay them, and cut his way through to the city of Mulek. But behold, Moroni and his men were more powerful. Therefore they did not give way before the Lamanites. And it came to pass that they fought on both hands with exceeding fury, and there were many slain on both sides. Yea, and Moroni was wounded, and Jacob was killed. And Lehi pressed upon their rear with such fury with his strong men, that the Lamanites in the rear delivered up their weapons of war, and the remainder of them, being much confused, knew not whither to go or to strike. Now Moroni, seeing their confusion, he said unto them, If ye will bring forth your weapons of war and deliver them up, behold, we will forbear shedding your blood. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites had heard these words, their chief captains, all those who were not slain, came forth and threw down their weapons of war at the feet of Moroni, and also commanded their men that they should do the same. But behold, there were many who would not. And those who would not deliver up their swords were taken and bound, and their weapons of war were taken from them, and they were compelled to march with their brethren forth into the land bountiful. And now the number of prisoners who were taken exceeded more than the number of those who had been slain, yea, more than those who had been slain on both sides. Nearly 1/3 of the Book of Mormon is devoted to recording the wars between the Lamanites and the Nephites. Why do you think there are so many chapters on war in the Book of Mormon? In these war chapters, how did Mormons show us Jesus Christ?